Good afternoon again. It is a little after 12:30. This is Southern Institutions, dealing with House Corrections and Institutions. We're in committee conference and we're expecting a package back from the aforementioned committee. So welcome again, Madam Chair. Glad to have you back.
Thank you. So, the House conference met, and we're doing easy stuff first. We're doing the easy things first, and then I have some questions about some other things. So we just want to get some easy things. So, I'm just gonna quickly walk through it. I have my own head scratching that I'm gonna do. So for major maintenance with 100,000 for the cafeteria furnishings, we've agreed to that. Also, we want to let you know that when this was being discussed on the House side, we were working with the Sergeant at Arms office.
Yep.
Because the Sergeant at Arms is the one who was filed with FEMA with about the furnishings. It's not BGS. BGS is not involved with this at all. And that's what were the conversations we had. And Sergeant at Arms was not clear if we were going to have FEMA reimbursement or not. So we were very careful with this. And that's the information that we had at the time. Once the bill came over to the Senate here, it was different information was coming to light.
Okay.
That we want to make sure that FEMA reimbursement is not jeopardized. That's what we were concerned about on the House side. Again, it is Sergeant at Arms that has filed with FEMA. BGS did not file for loss of chairs and tables with FEMA with Sergeant at Arms. So we were working with the Sergeant at Arms, and I just want to be very clear. We want to make sure that FEMA's not in jeopardy in the front. Sergeant at Arms.
We've been assured that they weren't, just to let you know. So,
From
Sergeant at Arms, yes, absolutely.
So that was the key for us for that. So we weren't hiding anything.
No,
We were working on information that we had.
right. And we weren't good. And I wouldn't want you to think that we thought that you just wanted to go explain to everybody as the new chairs. And tables were coming into the cafeteria actually to relate to which committee was responsible for that.
Uh-huh. And it might be better to put cafeteria furnishings and not tables and chairs. I don't know if that would be better. I'm not sure for that. Just a thought. So section 16 is the Lewiston report back of the town of Lewiston with their intent on if there's any feasibility. It was our oversight not to include certain institutions. For that, we've agreed to put in some institutions. We've also agreed to the language date change for purchasing the Lewiston property. And we know that we've already given approval for that in previous capital bills, but now we're changing that, so we've agreed to that. So that's section 16, 17,
Yep.
and 18.
And these sections are referencing the Senate version. A couple of them that were up here in the House.
So then we are not making any decision. The next piece is the Dr. Damien's sheets. I'm not with hand scratching. So the 16, 17, 18, 21, and of course this is Springfield transfer. And again, I want to thank you for that. That was an excellent for sure. It came in late, and I know issues with BGS. I am going to then jump other things before we get there, and I'm going to jump on this one. Section 26 and 27. This is the women's replacement facility we have some questions on your new language. On, I have section 26.
Yes.
Okay. So we have, if you look on your language that you added in, your section 26 amends our capital bill of last year. And section 26, I believe, only deals with the state-owned property, I believe. I'm not sure, I'm not clarified that with you first. Does it only deal with state-owned property? And for state-owned, do we only consider the proximity of, existing or potential future public transit? We need some clarity. Useful.
Explain that more, Madam Chair, please.
So section 26, which is our, your section, which amends our bill of last year, amends our section 28. We want to clarify, is this just for state-owned property, or is it if we purchase properties?
Yeah, it's state-owned.
Right, it's for any site that they end up choosing, is that it has to have those, and please, if I'm not answering correctly, just tell me. It's for any site, whether it's state-owned property or it's not a property that has to be purchased later because the state doesn't have a site available. It has to comply with all of those conditions as far as access to jobs, access to public transit, all of that stuff, all of the conditions that we put in there.
So is it currently state-owned property, or is it also property they might need to buy?
It would be both. It would be that they would have, that those conditions would have to be met on any properties that was gonna site a women's, correctional facility.
So we need, the thing means not here. We need clarity. Because if you flip to the next page, section 27.
Yeah.
Is that just for land that's purchased, or does that also include properties we currently own? Because it's worded a little different in terms of public transit services.
So David, I just want to make sure, Madam Chair has expressed, concern of section 26, if it just, I'll let you do it in your own words so that we get.
Yeah. So section 26, what I asked the Senate conferees is, does that pertain to property we currently own? Or does that also pertain to property we may purchase? And the question is for the proximity of existing and potential future public transit services. Does this section pertain just to properties that we own, or does it pertain also to properties that we might purchase?
I think because the proposal could include property that might be purchased, then it pertains to both.
Yeah, if you look at, Madam Chair, and maybe if we look at section 26, double small I, the site location, regardless of whether it is state-owned land or land purchased, are proposed to be purchased by the state shall be.
So then, either case, state-owned land that we currently own, or land that we may need to purchase if we can't find state-owned land. The proposal needs to consider the proximity of existing and potential future public transit use. Okay, so if you flip to section 27.
Yeah.
Authority to purchase, and there's a report. Is this section just pertain to purchase land?
So this is purchased land only. And it
So,
says in the event the commissioner is unable to identify state-owned land, the commissioner may purchase land in a location that is, and then the list of.
so what is being required if we purchase land is that it's near existing or potential future public transit use, not that it's considered. So there's a conflict there between those two sections. Because section 26 includes state-owned land or land that's proposed to be purchased. So we see those two need to be clarified.
Sure.
Is one, should they both be considered? Or should they both be near existing or future public transit? In
So-
reading the language, it's
Well, do
contradictory.
you have language proposed as far as to do that? I mean,
It was a question to clarify.
right.
Okay, so I don't know, I mean, we're okay with proximity of existing potential future public transit service. We're okay with that. But in one section, it would be considering, even if they purchase land. The next section, it's a qualification. It's not considered. So do you want to consider? Or do you want to be a requirement? Is the question, because they're in conflict.
Do you see this as being in conflict?
I see them as being two slightly different things. The language in 26 essentially says that you can consider the location of transit, but you're not required to site near transit if it's state-owned land. But when you read it in concert with 27, you would be required to do that for land you purchase. So the question here really is it your intent to require the state to choose only state-owned sites that are near existing or potential future public transit lines? Or that they can consider that, but if other factors weigh, balance out the lack of transit for a state-owned facility, they could still site there. Because that's what the language currently requires. If the intent is that no matter what, the site is near transit, then that would be, the alternative is to say it shall be near existing or future potential public transit. And so that, I don't think I'd describe it as a conflict. I think I describe it as accomplishing two different things. The first, both of them say, if you're buying, it has to be near transit. The current Senate version says, if we don't buy, if we use state-owned land, it doesn't have to be near transit, but we'd like you to think about that. The alternative is to say, if you're going to use state-owned land, it should be near transit as well.
I'll bring Kate into the conversation. Kate, don't you identify yourself? Do you see that that was intentionally written that way, or what say you about that?
Kate Everly, Department of Buildings and General Services. I believe when we talked about it, we suggested using the word consider because we want to maintain flexibility and also because public transportation in Vermont is a little bit in flux and we want to be able to work within the system that we have.
So should we add for section 27, which gives you the authority to purchase land if you need to add, that you should consider?
That would be our preference. I think it's a priority for DOC for workforce and for reentry both.
That's the way it's written now. It's a requirement for when you purchase land that's near existing or potential future. So should we add consider in that section and have it the same in both sections?
I don't have a problem.
Harrison?
Yeah, consider or evaluate or,
I would
mean,
keep the
near-
language consistent.
okay, consider.
So I would say strike A3, add a new subsection C, which says that,
Where are you, section 26 or?
section 27,
Oh.
strike A3 from the Senate version.
Yeah.
Add a new subsection C that says,
The same language as in.
yeah, basically say, if the commissioner purchases land, the commissioner shall consider the proximity of existing and potential future public transit services in selecting the land to purchase. Something along those lines.
So I'll just suggest, why don't you make that B
And then.
and then put a new
reports out.
section C with the reports?
Yep.
So then we're back on 26. I think we're fine with that.
Okay.
Right.
They changed.
Yes.
And that is like, okay, you hold on to that.
Yep.
Yeah, hold on to that. So if we go back to 26, we're just wondering also if the language proposal shall consider, if that gets moved up to, not C double I, but gets moved up to B double I and put in a 3 capital I. Track it with the site location shall be near support services in a reasonable proximity to existing workforce. It shall consider the proximity of existing and potential future public transit. It just flows better. They gotta look at those 3 things. You follow, just move that up a little bit,
And
then triple
I now 3 double I.
or is it triple I?
Yeah, and so to be a triple, and those, we call those Romanettes, capitalized.
I just keep raising us.
Romanette number 3,
Romanet number 3.
so, yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, you could say, yeah, you could just literally move that up wholesale to Romanette 3.
It's boring, but it's close.
Everybody clear?
Yeah.
So then on 27, when we purchase land, we're okay with the language we took out of ours, which is provided that any land purchase for replacement facilities just flows better the way you put it. We're gonna add a new section, consider public transit. The report back on B. We would really we're proposing to put our language back where it's a report from BGS to our committees between now and January. In case they to give a report on the progress of currently, whatever they're thinking of currently on property, we already know. Or they may need to purchase something if what they're looking at or potential places falls through, they may have to purchase property. We need to know that, because that's really gonna change the price of that facility we have to buy. And that's why we put that here, so we're asking for that to be put back. Probably we should report that. Because that will determine the ultimate cost of the project. And if we can do it on state-owned land, that's one cost to the project. If we have to buy land, that's really gonna bump that cost up and it's gonna delay the project. And we need to know that prior to the session starting next year. And that's what we did, so we're asking for that language to be considered.
Just the way it was.
Yes. And we agreed to your language about fulfilling the requirements.
I mean, that was just editing the changes that we made.
so, yeah, that was, if you remember when we were discussing this in the Senate, there were just concerns that it was getting repetitive, so I tried to capture the same intent.
Right.
I think the concern from the House side is that you lose a little clarity. Even though you accomplish essentially the same thing, and this makes it clear that they want progress reports on identifying the state-owned property and on purchasing. And so that may also add clarity and simplify the report for.
I don't think we're trying to change it, because I remember the conversation that, I think Wendy had that conversation, I think you, Senator Harrison had that.
I think it was Senator Renner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it does, I think, make it clear, and unless you know what resolves number 69, section 28 is, you have no idea what's really going there. Yours is,
Clear.
Yeah.
yeah,
better said.
But you can keep progress in fulfilling or not, I mean. it
Other than
doesn't
change
matter.
the intent, whether you guys decide on the language.
I would just go back to the House
Go
language,
back to the
revert
house
to it,
line.
because it reflects the language that's in those sections.
Yeah, I said it would be easy.
Okay, are we done?
No.
Oh, well,
No.
congratulations, thank you.
In terms of the reuse of the chicken facility, there's a lot of moving pieces with the date, this one. This is kind of tied to what PGS can do with no money. It's tied in with the forensic study, and there was an email that was sent to both Senator Ingalls and myself about from PGS that without any money, we have forensic study and we have this, they can't do both. We don't know what's gonna happen with that forensic study. S-192 is up in the air completely. They may not agree on anything and it may die. So therefore, we're gonna need the language for the forensic study. BGS would then possibly do this feasibility study and mail the entry within their current budget and have that done by January. But it's contingent in terms of what happens to S-192, which is out of our control right now.
So the language for the study on the male reentry was trying to be good with you folks. Because what's gonna happen, and I can tell you what's gonna happen, and you've been here long enough, Madam Chair, to know what's gonna happen. There's gonna be 4 other studies on that before it's all said and done. There's gonna be 4 other studies on there because we're 6 years away from having a women's facility built. And any information that we do now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, is not gonna be relevant, and they're gonna do another study besides that. So we're gonna be pretty inflexible as far as changing. We are trying to be as what we can be, because I actually, we heard that it was very important to one of your to Tristan to be fair. And that we wanted to be accommodating with that, but as far as to go and change a lot of that, I know the forensic part of this is very, very important to Senate appropriations. I would be very surprised if we don't move forward exactly how that study language is proposed, because on this side of the building, that is more important than the study on the reentry. In regards to honoring what your committee had asked for, but also with the chair of judiciary, they were very fine with that language being pushed out, that study being pushed out into next year's capital bill. Because at that point in time, even who knows, maybe there may be another study that might be wanting to be asked, but we're trying to avoid is to do, and what we talked about in the Senate with a pro town, was be very mindful about the dollars being spent on the Senate side about study after study after study. And so that's what we're trying to avoid, is to spend monies on a study that we know that we can make a fairly good guess, educated guess, that there's gonna be more than one study that's going to be asked to be done on that topic.
So my statement was that BGS cannot do 2 internal studies without funding for forensic and for this. S-192 is totally up in the air. That has to be resolved between the 2 bodies that we are not involved in. So we don't know where that bill goes. We don't know what we're gonna do with this section for the now reentry, because it's contingent on that forensic. If the forensic facility bill dies, there will not be any need for language here for a forensic facility, which then frees up BGS internally within their budget to do a reentry study for males. That's what I'm saying. Doesn't say we're doing both, for money for both, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying S-192 is so much up in the air, we have to wait to see what happens between the House and Senate version.
And so before we change any language, let's wait.
So that's, I'm just putting out, the date may change depending on what happens. So I'm just putting that out on the table for that. And then I know this language came from Senate Judiciary. And we are okay with your reorganizing the list and putting evaluate in there. And we're okay with B3, which is
What section I'm here?
we're on.
Just go like the next page.
So 3, if the existing chicken facility cannot be repurposed as a reentry facility, a new facility cannot be constructed on the site, and a new facility can't be, then they'll look at our potential sites. The question that we have is the definition of reentry. Is this definition of reentry just for the male facility? Or does it also pertain to the women's new facility that includes the reentry use? What's the intent of the Senate?
the intent of the Senate was to have, the same opportunity for the male reentry site as with the women's reentry site. As far as to have access to all the services.
So I'm gonna ask Damon, is this limited, this definition, the way it's structured to just male facility, or does it also include?
Only applies to the male facility section. The word reentry do not appear in either of the other two sections, including the underlying bill from last year for the women's facility. It just says women's facilities or replacement women's facilities, excuse me.
So if the intent is for male and female, this needs to be structured. And in reading this, knowing the world of corrections, this definition is very broad and it could include vocational ed, mental health counseling, substance use disorder, recovery services, assistance with obtaining public benefits. All of that happens within a regular incarcerated setting. So having such a broad definition, we have worked with HOK in terms of what the reentry definition is in the corrections world. So we're offering this language for reentry definition. BGS is okay with this. DOC, we've reached out to DOC. They may have some comments. We haven't heard anything back to date, but I'm aware of. But it defines reentry a little bit more specific. Doesn't bring in the regular incarcerated population. So we're putting that on the table for future commissions.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, we'll definitely come over there for you. Take a look at that.
Right, and this has a lowest level of security. That's something that the other one doesn't have, which is important. And I'm sorry, did you say, say BGS was okay with this,
Yes.
but DOC, you don't know yet?
Unless I've got an email
Okay,
back from them, I can check.
yeah, I just wanna make sure that I heard it right.
Got too many texts coming over, people wanting to. Oh, that's not. I haven't received anything. And we've sent it to them 2 times, 2 or 3 times, and we've heard things. But, so we're proposing that definition, and then we need to clarify. Is the intent just for male? Or is this what we also want for the women's facilities and not the empties?
Okay.
For that, because I believe Damien and looking in previous capital bills, it is a reference.
There was a,
In 21, 22.
yes, let me, yes, it was in the 2022 Act 50. So first year of the 21-22 biennium. So, Act 50, it said, just reference any state-owned and operated women's reentry and correctional facilities. And it was in reference to $500,000 that would be available to determine space and programming needs. And then later bills either said women's correctional facilities replacement in the line item for the budget, or just the women's replacement facilities, or actually I think it was women's replacement facilities for justice involved women. So you'll see on the sheet there that one of the potential options, not this sheet, but on the bullet points here, is that, and I forgot to include quotes, but to replace the phrasing replacement women's facilities with replacement, insert the words reentry and correctional between women's and facilities there. So it reads replacement women's reentry and correctional facilities, And then you could add that definition of reentry facility to be clear about what you're talking about. So,
So, so for example, where it says replacement facilities there,
yeah, in 27, yeah, it would say replacement. Women's reentry and correctional facilities.
That all depends what we wanna do with, what your intent is. For that definition of the entry, if you just limit male facilities, section law. Or, I mean, either way, it's section law, but would it, you also wanted to apply to the new facility that we're gonna have a reentry part. So I don't know what the Senate Judiciary's intent was, I don't.
Oh, we'll discuss it when we.
We'll hear that. Good. Okay, so those are kind of the easy things. There's a couple of other things I want to give you some documents, and I appreciate somebody both talking about plan upon plan with the facility on shipping the Windsor. Windsor facility. I know that folks are saying there's no plan. There's nothing going forward. We did some digging when we closed that facility back. It was around 2017. The Appropriations Committee in the Senate had language that was added to Act 75, Section 335. Plan provides secure transitional housing for inmates re-entering the community. This was the Windsor facility. And to come back and plan. This is the plan. That plan was done for reentry facility. Nothing got worked on. December 15th, 2018. Our committee and Senate Institutions Committee was submitting a plan done by BGS to determine, and this was on which was in the capital bills back then, to determine if there's any other state use. There was highest and best state use and future potential state use. And the language in the capital bill was that BGS would reach out to all of our state entities and see if there was any use. So, there's that. Then there was a report that was submitted to both of our committees in December 15th, 21. Because we had language in the previous capital bill that we wanted to take another look, so we need to make some movement. And we were not supportive, legislature at that time, it's not supportive of selling the property. So we had a committee made up of the town manager, Windsor Regional Committee, Executive Director, BGS, Secretary of Agency BAG, DHCB, Agency of Commerce and Community Development, the Department of Fish to look at plans. This is their report. And then they came back with a proposal, which is currently in the works, proposed scope of work for potential reuse of the Windsor prison property. 50,000 was put in the appropriations bill in 22 for FY 23 for a third-party contractor to come out and look at potential plans. Tom Kennedy is leading that with a contractor who testified to our committee in March. I believe he came here and. Is there another? Did you make one?
Yeah,
And
that's the one copy.
this is a report, and they're coming in with a final report in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
So there's been some reports done. We need to take some movement on Windsor to really, we're paying money. I don't know how much money we're paying per year.
250,000.
250,000 per year we're paying to keep it going. We need to start making some steps here. We don't know what those steps will be. But we need to start showing the community of Windsor, and we need to start showing some partners here that we need to take some steps forward here for this. Even if we use it for state use, there's still some buildings that will need to come down. And BGS has testified to that effect to us. They worked with the Mount Scotney Regional Planning Commission And they had compromise language that both parties agreed to, that were in our bill, was taken out. Both parties agreed to that. So we're working on all the reports that have been out there. And we're saying, we need to start making some steps here. Would be baby steps, but we need to start showing the community, we're not gonna let this property just fall apart for that. So I wanted to put that on the table for you folks. And then I'm gonna shift to the naming committee. Because we've been working on this. And we reached out to Laura Trishman, who was our historic preservation officer. And she brought in Alex Farrell, who was the secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. And they suggested putting together a study group to look in terms of how we can go forward and name state buildings that are under the jurisdiction of BGS. And they proposed a working group. But that working group would come back with a proposed process and a proposed makeup of what entity should do the name. They submitted to us, and we asked for this, submit to us who should be on this study. And they came back with Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, the Historic Preservation Officer, BGS, the Historical Society, State Librarian, BLCT, and Office Official. That's what we did. And we made sure it was a working group because we heard what BGS was saying. They didn't have capacity to do this, to name buildings. So we said, let's do a study and come back to our solution. So that's why we did it. Those are the two things for the Windsor and for the name. I just
Okay.
wanted to put those things on the table.
Appreciate it. Good.
That's all we've discussed at this point.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get on the floor.
We'll get together here, three
We're gonna get together
amongst us.
we'll cut and then we'll,
And you want to,
let's just see how long we take.
We got 3 floor sets.
We got 3 floor sessions today. How are you guys doing?
we're open anytime. We
Okay.
don't need to be on the floor.
Oh, okay.
Conference committee's priority.
Break from 3 to 4, kind of like,
Yeah.
and then. Who knows when we finish tonight.
Great.
We're
The moon
here
will be up.
whenever we need to work. So
I think we can get through our stuff maybe, and then we're gonna try for a half an hour. And so, you wanna try at 3:30? Will that work?
Sure.
And,
Okay, I'll probably be in and out, with another bill across the hall on appropriations, but. I will be here as much as I can,
good.
and I'll have Scott here, who I can always trust to keep me updated.
Scott Moore, joint this one.
You know, this reminds me, one more thought. Speaking of Scott. I'm wondering on the dams.
Yep.
Because you added, we got. I wonder, Scott, if you could do some research and see if there's any other monies there for the dams anywhere.
I know in S213, there's some monies and stuff, so I'll look and see
Yeah.
if that might.
Yeah, and see if there's other monies around and if you could have that, would you be able to do that by 3:30? Or is that gonna be too tough?
We'll do our bestest,
Do your
by
best,
gosh.
just so that we know if there's more money, because
Yeah.
you're right, there's that damn.
The revolving fund, that there's money there. I'll look into it.
Okay.
Great.